We are back, this time taking an analytical look at our journey of drafting without rares for Tarkir Dragonstorm. So, I've got a couple of different things to go through, and let's dive right in and see what we learned and what our takeaways can be to get us ready for our favorite set, Final Fantasy, which is coming up. So overall record was 100 wins, 72 losses. It did take us 25 drafts. That comes out to a win rate of 58.1%. If we look at the breakdown, our number one most drafted deck was red-white. We drafted that 9 of our 25 times. And you can see our win rate was not great, 52.6%. Interestingly, we only had 3 red-white decks that were pure red-white. All the other ones were like splashing black or blue sometimes, for like Jeskai Monument, Mardu Monument. I think our win rate, a little surprising to me that our win rate was so low for red-white. That's like well below normally. I don't know if we were getting unlucky, if we should have been going a little bit bigger red-white. If there were just too many drafters, I don't know. Definitely something to look back at. I mean, we definitely had some misplays that lost us some games. We had 0 trophy decks in red-white, so no decks that got to 7 wins. We only had 2 decks that got to 7 wins, period. And they were both our next most played, green-black. So both of our next trophy decks were green-black, and you can see green-black had a 63.2% win rate. So the green-black was really treating us well. I think it was probably my favorite archetype, and we had a really nice run with it, kind of towards the middle, and then it seemed like it was just never open again after that. There was like this period where people just weren't taking the counters cards. And we really profited from that. Other decks, it was just kind of a smattering of things, right? We had 1 blue-red deck, 1 green-red deck, 2 Teamer aggressive decks, 1 like full Mardu, 2 Jeskai, which were... One of them was kind of like a Jeskai control, but they were mostly just like red-white with a heavy blue splash. 1 Abzan and 1 5-color. No pure Sultai decks, which is interesting. But yeah, 25 drafts. Win rate is a little lower. Last time I did this, our win rate was above 60%. We were at like 62. I think a lot of it comes down to red-white being our most drafted and our worst performing. I think we were probably... People started picking the Exhales, Molten Exhale earlier, and some of the other removal. And I think I did not adjust my pick order enough. So even though I didn't want a ton of removal, I still should have taken the premium removal a little bit earlier. And so I do think partially it was my fault. I think we had some unlucky draws, but... and it is a relatively small sample size. So you always have to consider, you know, even playing 172 games in the grand scheme of things is a very small sample size. But yeah, green-black, definitely our best deck. I want to go and take a look at a couple of our really good trophy decks. All right, so first off, I want to look at our green trophy decks here. So if we pull these up, we'll separate them by creatures. All right, so if we're looking, this is one of the decks, green-black, that we went 7-1 with. So this one's pretty interesting because we only have 5 2-drops. And they're not great. None of them are great 2-drops. But what this deck does have is 4 Sage of the Fangs, as well as 2 Tomb Guards, 2 Envoys, 3 Champion of Dusans, and then it's got the all-important Synchronized Charge. I think having 2 of these is what really makes this deck tick. The other thing that I think was different about this deck is how many ways we have of putting counters on things. So a lot of times these decks struggle because there aren't enough ways to get counters on your creatures. And so we have 4 Sage of the Fangs, which come in, put a counter on your 2-drop. Champion of Dusan the Renew, great way to put a counter on. Aggressive Negotiations, the Envoys can put counters on themselves. Synchronized Charge, counter, Snakeskin Veil. So this deck was really doing great at just having a ton of ways of getting counters on creatures. And I think we even misplayed on our one loss with this deck. So, I mean, this just shows like sweet curve, diving into the synergies, but really like Synchronized Charge is what just tied these decks together perfectly. And this deck was really strong. It was tons of fun to play. So let's take a look at one of the other ones. Okay, so this was our other trophy deck that went 7 and 2. You can see this one has more of a typical curve for what we're expecting. This one's got 1/1-drop and 8 2-drops. Again, you'll note our other green-black trophy deck also has 2 Synchronized Charge. Again, this was the card, I think, it just overperformed. It was really good in these decks. And then this deck had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. So this one, 12, 13. So 13 ways to put counters on things. I think that was one of the big things you need to look out for with these decks is how many ways do you have of getting counters on your stuff? And this is another great one where you have 13 ways of getting counters. So you're going to have your creatures with counters. This one just had a really sweet curve, like we've been talking about all season long. We want a ton of 2-drops. We want a ton of creatures. This is 18 creatures. Yeah, in these games, I mean, we just got to curve out. We got to double spell. And then we got to finish them off with Synchronized Charge. Another really cool deck here. All right, this is one of our 6 and 3 decks. So we didn't quite get there. It may have been to me misplaying. But this was another sweet one where we just have a nice curve. We have a couple less creatures here. This is only 16 creatures. But again, we have 7 2-drops, 1 1-drop. And then we have a lot of ways to put counters on. And this one, we actually had 2 of the best 2-drops, the Traveling Botanist, which was really, really good. And this one had 2 counters, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, the magic number, 13 counters. Only had 3, kind of 4 pieces of removal. So this one was more removal than we normally have. But yeah, another just really strong example of green-black, having a nice curve, curving out, and killing people. Yeah, another really good example of what your decks want to be looking like. I've got one more 6 and 3 deck for you. All right, so this is our other 6 and 3 deck, and this one was pretty fun. This one we had 4 Stalwart Successors, but no Synchronized Charges. Same with our other 6 and 3. We also didn't have Synchronized Charges. This one had, let's take a look at how many ways to put counters on. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. See, that's the thing. Only 12 things that put counters on. No, but in all seriousness, I mean, this deck was really cool. The fact that we got 4 Stalwart Successors, I think if this had had 1 Synchronized Charge, there's no doubt it would have gotten 7 wins. We had to unfortunately play the Death Gorgers to get our counter up. But another really fun deck. You can just see nice curve. This one didn't have as many 2-drops, but we had so many Successors. And this wasn't one where we ended up playing Alicia's Legacy because it gives Death Touch, because we had so many creatures with Menace. We had the 3 Successors and the Tomb Guard. And when you have a creature with Menace and you're attacking, and they have to block it, something that gives them Indestructible and Death Touch is just so good. So that was a really cool kind of combination that maybe most people wouldn't think about, but was really fun. And notably, all these decks had 1 Caustic Exile in them, which is kind of fun. But yeah, this was another 18 creatures. Big takeaway from this, and especially going towards Final Fantasy, is just building a nice curve of creatures with a couple removal and interactions. I think it's going to be really strong. I'm really going to be looking at the Naya colors for Final Fantasy. I will be making a video about what decks I'm looking to be playing on day 1. and how I would look to build them. So be on the lookout for that. That should be coming soon. But yeah, another good green black, and then one more deck I wanted to look at. All right, this last deck here was technically not part of the challenge, but was the day before the challenge started. I just did a draft on this account, and this was a 7-0 red white deck. This was like one of the coolest decks I drafted. I mean, you won't see it often, but we had 5 Mardu devotees, 2 Descend into the Storm, so 7 1-drops, and then we had 8 2-drops and 1 3-drop, and those were our creatures. So I mean, that's like the lowest of low curves. We played 15 lands because we had so many scries and 1-drops. And then we had double Molten Exhale. And like this was the thing that a lot of our red-white decks were missing, where we just didn't have the premium Molten Exhales or Rally the Monastery. And I think that's what these decks need is, again, we don't have a ton. We only have 4 removal spells. But just having a couple of those to get rid of that one pesky blocker, I think is what really turns on these decks. So that's something to be looking out for in the next set, is just making sure you have a couple pieces of key removal. It's just going to take your deck up to that next level. So maybe when you're drafting, think about taking that first really good piece of removal, first or second, and then forgetting about the removal after that and prioritizing creatures. Especially if everyone's taking the removal. If everyone's taking the creatures, then you can kind of shift and start taking your creatures early. But yeah, another really good example of like just what a sweet curve can do for you in a good deck. Yeah, and get you that 7 win. All right, last thing we're going to look at, we have the top commons and uncommons that we drafted. Coming in at number 5 for the most drafted common for us was the Aenoch Wayfarer, which makes sense. This was great in the counters deck. Nice little body. It finds you a land to hit you your 3rd drop. Puts the counter on. Really, really good. Our next most drafted common was Tempest Hawk, which we didn't play a lot, but I think was just because if I saw these late, I generally picked them up to see if I could get 4 or 5. Because if you did get a lot of these in a deck, they were good. So it wasn't that I was prioritizing them. I think I just drafted a lot of them late. Our 3rd most drafted was the Jeskai Devotee. Another just solid 2-drop in red, which makes sense. Our 2nd most drafted common was Mardu Devotee. Again, probably the best, 2nd best white common. And we started seeing these really late towards the end. So I think people were undervaluing them. Very, very strong card. And our most drafted common was our favorite, the champion of Doosan. Yeah. I mean, we loved this card. It did everything we wanted. It had trample. It gave trample. It gave counters. It attacked really well. Yeah, it was just everything we were looking for in any aggressive green deck. As far as uncommons, our 5th most drafted uncommon, Host of the Hereafter. Again, we were seeing this during that middle stretch. People were passing these around the table. And we got to pick so many of these. Really good in the counter deck. Our next one was Sage of the Fang. Again, we had one deck that had 5 of these in it. Another card where, like, counters, people just hated it for a little while. And we were picking up all these sweet uncommons. Yeah, so Sage of the Fang. Next up was Frontline Rush. Makes sense. This is probably the best red-white. I mean, it's like one of the best red-white spells. It can be creatures if you need it. It could be a pump finisher for your go wide. Really, really, really strong card. After that was the Stalwart Successor. Again, we had a deck with 4 of these. We had decks with 2 of them. Really, really strong with the counters, as long as you had cards to put the counters on. And our number 1 most drafted uncommon, Synchronized Charge. I mean, I really value these. You saw both of our trophy decks had 2 of these in it. So this was the number 1 card I was looking for counter decks, for aggressive green decks. And I took it highly. If I saw one going by, I'd usually take it. So I think that makes sense that I was taking this one that high. And that was that. So thank you all for watching. Appreciate you. Be sure to hit that subscribe. We are going to be doing a giveaway for one Tarkir Dragonstorm collector booster. Not the whole box, just one of the boosters. All you got to do to enter, guys, is you just have to be subscribed and then leave a comment about what you're looking forward to in the next set and what you're hoping to draft. And we'll be picking a winner a week from today. Appreciate you all. Peace.